Okay, I am here with Mr. Robin Syre. Sayer? Sayer. How do you say your name, Robin?
Both variations are good. Usually, like Syre is the one that I prefer, but I hear it in all different kinds of form. I do like Robin a lot.
Yeah, Robin's definitely a bit easier for me. Now, so you have a strong Austrian accent, and you are from Austria and currently live in Austria, correct?
Yeah, I'm Austrian. I live in Austria. I've been born here, so my strong Austrian accent, I probably never get completely rid of it, but it really improved the last like 1 year because I talk now all the time in English with my guests. So in my professional life, I talk like 95% only in English. And my girlfriend actually is also from India. So I cannot speak Hindi, she cannot speak German, so we speak English together. So my life completely converted now to only speaking English, like 90% speaking English, outside of my family and some friends. So I hope my accent, I hope I'm understandable.
Oh my God, no, there's nothing to improve. First of all, yeah, it's just you can tell where you're from, right? Because we're all used to Arnold, right? And you sound like so the Austrian. I mean, the most famous Austrian in the world in North America is by far Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? So it's a distinct accent and even separate from like a German accent. Like we just had Leon come speak at our event. What I've noticed is, despite you guys being beside each other and share such a similar culture, it is two completely separate accents.
Yeah, and even inside of Austria, there are like some small variations depending on where you are, because there's like a big mountains, and so those big mountains can kind of really distributed the people across the land. So there are parts in Austria where I don't understand them if they speak German, because they have such a strong I don't know how it's called in English, actually, dialect, like it's a really strong accent they're speaking with. And yeah, I think all Austrians for Americans sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I guess.
You know what? It's really interesting because Canada being such a big country, we don't have that many diverse accents. Like we have French Canadian, right, who are predominantly speaking French when they're in Quebec. And then if they speak English, they have a strong French Canadian accent. And then Southern Ontario, where we are, we maybe have more of like an Americanized standard American accent type. And then more Northern Canadians or maybe more Western Canadians have like a hoser accent, and they kind of talk like this, right? It's kind of like the parody Canadian accent. And on the West Coast, it's kind of similar to here. So it's like, Canada's weird like that because Europe just has so much culture that these different pockets have such deep history of dialects. It's really interesting to me.
Yeah, in Europe, if you drive with your car like an hour or 2, 3 hours, you can be in a completely different culture with a completely different language, maybe even with a completely different currency. Like with, in Europe, not everyone has the euro, which I think I found that some Americans don't know actually. So the euro is not completely spread across Europe. And so we have a lot of different cultures. So that's, I guess there's like a really big history in culture in Europe, and like small distributed regions, which is interesting for the decentralized, because we hear a lot of the ECP and how the EU is kind of a government for all those governments. But Europe is a lot more decentralized than, for example, America, the USA is. USA is now, we're talking about the USA, like it's one country. It's no longer like individual states. There's still states, but it's like getting more and more towards like one voice with Donald Trump, with like one country, one language, one currency. Europe, on the other hand, is really distributed, decentralized. Even they're trying to put like EU on top of it and making it centralized, but even politically and definitely culturally, I think Europe is extremely decentralized in a way.
Interesting. Okay, so that's not the impression I get, and I've never actually been to Europe, but so maybe that's just me from the outside looking in. I see the EU. Aren't most of the European countries using the €1 currency?
Yes, most of them, but not all. For example, Switzerland, in the heart of Europe, basically isn't even in the EU. We had Great Britain in there, but now they are no longer in the EU. Then the Balkan area, like Albania, they're not in the EU, and they have different currencies. In Czech, which is in the EU and is right next to Austria and Germany, they're using the Czech krona and not the euro. But I have to say, you can probably pay almost everything in the euro, even though they're not officially have the euro as a currency. So it is a lot more decentralized as you would think, because you probably, when you look from the outside in, you just like hear this Lagarde and like this EU people outside. But there are like a lot of individual governments that are really critical of the EU. For example, the Czechs are critical. Hungarian prime minister is really critical of the EU. I think he even plays with the thought of getting out of the EU. So there's a lot of critical thinking from EU nations against the EU, which makes it interesting, because a lot of things in the EU can only be done if all the states agree on. So there's like things, if they go really far, if one nation says we don't do that, it's not going to happen. It's the veto right of nations.
Oh, interesting. So there is that power to push back, like a Brexit type situation. And I guess it's similar to the United States. I never thought of the EU as like the one euro government, but it's like the federal government in the states, and then individual states can still kind of have their own cultures and push back on certain federal policies. Like I remember Texas was pushing back against the open border policy of the last administration. And they're like, enough is enough. Like, we're going to take this into our own hands. And they were actively working against the federal government who wanted the open border. So it is important to have those checks and balances, I think, right?
It is really interesting how like nation states interact with like those bigger institutions. And I asked it a lot on the podcast, and I'm asking myself that a lot. What will happen once we have a currency, an asset like Bitcoin that is across all the nations the same? So we all use Bitcoin in a far out future, let's say 100 years, 200 years, and we don't have that many national currencies anymore. What will happen with the nation states? It's probably like more individual economic zones that we kind of define. So it is interesting how it will be developed, but for me, it's just like the EU is doing a lot of things wrong, in my opinion. So I'm also like really critical against them, but it's not as centralized and authoritarian as a lot of people would think.
Mm-hmm. Robin, why don't we introduce you to our audience? Just for anyone that doesn't know you, what's your background and your story?
My story, I can sum it up basically with I'm not a guy that interviews a Bitcoiner every day. So I'm having almost every day an interview, like actually every day an interview with a Bitcoiner. And I almost have now 500 different Bitcoiners on my show in total. But I started out as just some young dude that just wants to figure out where to put the money. And it's interesting because you also have a real estate audience here. It's, for me, before I got into Bitcoin, I actually wanted to go into real estate. I was kind of successful in the stock market. I just figured out the first few years of my career, okay, I have some extra money. What do I want to do with that? Went in the stock market, had some successes with that. And then you have extra cash. You all of a sudden have some resources to allocate. And then you ask yourself, okay, what do I do? What's the next step? You always hear like you should diversify different asset class and all those things. And after stocks, for me, it was like, okay, I'm good now with individual stocks. Why not look at real estate? Why not do real estate? It makes a lot of sense. And it was right around the same time when I also discovered Bitcoin. And in hindsight, I'm quite happy actually that Bitcoin was there before, because real estate for me is nowadays more in more investing and business than it is a savings technology. And I was searching all of us for savings technology. I was a good investor. I wanted to distribute capital, but I was a forced investor. I honestly just wanted to have something where I can deploy 100% of my time and then save that time in a vehicle that makes sense. And for me, I now found Bitcoin as the best vehicle for saving. It also happens to be a completely great upside potential because it's a savings technology that just gets discovered, because like 0.1% of people really got Bitcoin right now, and like 99% of the people will still figure it out. So it has this huge upside potential, but at its core, Bitcoin is just a savings technology. So I'm looking at Bitcoin as a savings technology. That's how I discovered it. And for me, real estate, stocks, or even having a company, which I have, is something that is in another category. And this I discovered with like 20, 21 years old, pretty early on. So I switched with 21 years old, all my capital to Bitcoin, completely being Bitcoin only. And from that moment onwards, I had a lot of calmness in my life, because all of a sudden, if you don't have to worry about investing, about a real estate property, about anything, you just have Bitcoin, self-custody, and have it set up. You don't have to pay property taxes. Like you don't get taxed on your Bitcoin. There's no rent guy calling you that the toilet is broken or anything like that. You can focus 100% of your time towards having a great relationship with your girlfriend, with your partner, with your parents, with your sons and daughters. And you can also focus 100% of your time doing what you are great at. Maybe you are a great doctor, maybe you're a great engineer, whatever you're doing as a trade, as a skill, you can focus 100% of your time there again. And this is something I came to love. If you have 100% of your time focused on that, and whatever comes on top of your cash flow, you're just, okay, I put that in Bitcoin. And that clarity and that focus led me ultimately to having a podcast. So I started end of 2023. So let's say 2024, a Bitcoin podcast. I have that now since almost 1.5 years. And I'm doing it now since 1 year and 2 months, completely on my own, and doing that as a full-time project for myself. And it's doing really, really great. And I'm deeply grateful that it's possible to make evangelizing for what you believe in a job, and having the best savings technology as a backbone of that. Another small story we can can get into. I started the podcast out of security of my Bitcoin asset. So because I had Bitcoin as a savings technology, I saved up some money in Bitcoin, which gave me the security of saying, hey, I can now venture into having a podcast. I can now venture into basically making a small media company and founding this thing and just bootstrapping it, because I did not want to have take a credit out for making the podcast. I did not want to have investor money or venture capital or anything like that. I just wanted to have that thing where I can work and build something great. And that is possible because of Bitcoin. Without Bitcoin, I would not have the bravery and also the economic stability and force to actually go ahead and do that. Fun enough, I never needed it. So like from the first month onwards, I always got enough money to have to support my mission, but Bitcoin was there to basically support the cause. So that's a short story of where I am and how I got here.
Hey everyone, before we dive back into the podcast, I've got a quick shout out about the Your Life, Your Terms report. This is Tom's weekly newsletter where he and Nick share real stories, experiences, and powerful insights to help you live life on your terms. Each week, Tom breaks down the economy, real estate, macro trends, and Bitcoin, and gives you actionable steps to make these insights work for you. No fluff, no vague predictions, just a clear path to thriving no matter what's going on in the world. Tens of thousands of Canadians are already getting the real information they need to level up their lives every week. I can honestly say it's the only newsletter that I've stayed subscribed to for years. It delivers real value that keeps me coming back for more. Join us and start getting the insights and tools to create the life you want, plus entertaining and inspiring stories from Tom and Nick along the way. Sign up for free at rockstarinnercircle.com/get started and start living life on your terms. That's rockstarinnercircle.com/get started. Your first step to living life on your terms.
So we get a ton of questions from our audience about how to start a podcast, how to create content, how to create a movement, how to get their voice out into the world. And specifically, a lot of people are interested in a podcast. So you're like a prime example of somebody that went all in on and focused on just creating a podcast, at least to start out with, and focused all their attention on it and are able to do it full time. So you mentioned the runway that Bitcoin was able to give you. Did you ever have a part-time job or full-time job when you started this? Were you managing both at the same time? Or were you able to say, okay, I've got a runway of savings because of Bitcoin. I have the freedom for maybe the next 6 months to try to launch this thing. Like, can you walk us through the early origins of that?
Yeah, I started the podcast when I had a part-time job. So I actually did not intend I was studying and had a part-time job, and then I started the podcast. I did not intend that podcast to be my full-time job at all. I just wanted to have a platform where I can speak with Bitcoiners. That was my intentions. I had those connections online with Twitter and wanted to see how I can connect with people. I did not make any single euros or dollars till that moment. And then I started the podcast, and about 3 months in, I realized that I can make money with that. So first sponsors approached me, ad revenue on YouTube all of a sudden started coming in. And this was not a lot of money. It was like a couple of €100 that I got there. But then this couple of €100 kind of made me realize that maybe there is a business there, because I'm just doing it for fun and I'm making money. What if I put all my energy into that? Maybe I can make a lot more money so I can support myself. That was my whole thesis. This was then a really hard decision to go full time. And there are a lot of people that maybe have some channels, maybe have something next to what they're already doing to make money. And maybe they even get a small revenue from that. Maybe they get like $500 from that each month, and then thinking, oh, I need more than €500, but I don't want to jump. But they will maybe never get more without the jump because they need to allocate more time into that. And for me, this was a critical moment of saying, there is something there. I see value there. And as the show is called, like, I want to live my life on my own terms. And I don't want to look back in 10, 20 years and say, why did I not try that? And now I'm 26 years old. Back then I was 25 years old. Like I don't have anything to lose. I don't have, I don't have children that I have to support each month. My situation was so clear that I can take this risk. I have Bitcoin to support me. I even, in a worst case situation, I could even go back to my parents. I have to basically swallow my pride and then go back to them. But I could do that. So I had basically a safety net. And then I left the job that I was 6 years in. This job was a little bit more than a job. It was my first job. I was 6 years there. I loved the people there. I loved the work actually also. I just didn't like the subject of it. I didn't like IT security, but everything around that I really liked. So it was hard to get away from that because nothing pushed me away. So it was not that the job pushed me away because it was so bad. It was more that I liked Bitcoin so much more, and living on my own terms and doing a podcast especially was so much more intriguing for me that I saw in the first 2-3 months the grass on the other side is so much greener for me that I had to jump. So in an essence, I had a part-time job. I made the jump, and then everything made a lot more sense once I was there. The first month was really hard, obviously, because you have to figure all out. You're like, oh, of course, I have to get a bookkeeping. I have to get to the government and say I have a business now. Then they come with all those forms to fill out. Like, it can be really overwhelming, especially in the first half a year. I would say it was my first ever business that I started, and it's not even a business; it's a self-employed business. I don't know if there's something like that in Canada, but in Austria, there's a possibility. If you are just on your own, you can build a business, but there's not a lot of forms you have to fill out. It's not a lot of restrictions. It's really easy also with the taxes. It's basically just an employee on its own type of things. As soon as you get to 2 people, you have to found an actual company. But that's not a topic. So even though it was pretty easy to do it, it was still scary. I did not knew what was like a value-added tax, and all of a sudden I have to report those taxes and make invoices. So if you're on your own, all of a sudden you're doing everything, and that can be quite intimidating. But once you're through there, you're like, hey, that's not that hard. Like, you're just filling out some forms. You're trying to stay on the deadlines that you're given by various people, and it's not that hard. So that was the first kind of step towards, hey, I can make that work. And then the money came in, the sponsors came in, the ad revenue came in, and slowly the ball got rolling. But yeah, it is really difficult, and I know for a fact how hard that decision can be, even though it was so obvious. In my case, I was so young, I had nothing to lose. Like, it was so obvious to just try it out. I could go back after a year and say, hey, it did not work out. I'll do the other thing again. Like, that was a very easy possibility for me. But I still had so many reservations towards that. So I can imagine maybe there's someone sitting there with 38 years old and wants to do the same thing. Maybe he has already 1 kid. It's a whole other risk thing that he has to go through in order to make that jump. For me, it was so hard already, even though it was logically a very easy decision to make. So I can understand anyone that struggles with that decision.
So what did it take to build the momentum, to build an audience from zero to the ability to live full time on it? How did you do it? You mentioned you doing 1 interview a day and have done so since you started. So did you have an understanding going into it that, like, I need to just pump out content and get myself out there and get noticed? And also, it's not like you're the first Bitcoin podcast. So did you ever think to yourself, oh my God, I'm kind of in a saturated market. Like, how do I personally break through or differentiate myself from all the other content out there?
I think, first of all, it's good to be in a... I think if you're the only one doing it, it's probably harder, because then there's a question, why is nobody else doing it? Maybe it's not profitable. Maybe it's not a good idea. So the fact that there is some other people already doing a similar thing is kind of proving that it's possible. So I see, if I went into this Bitcoin thing and I knew already there are Bitcoin podcasts, obviously, they're really big ones, like What is Money, the Peter McCormack, Natalie Brunell, like there's really big Bitcoin podcasts already out there. So I knew that there's competition out there, but I also knew that Bitcoin has so much more potential that I was basically saying, hey, we have now a market of the size X, and this will be 100 or 200X from here. So there's like 99.99% of the market still to be captured. So it was not really a competition. It just showed me that it's possible. And I think this is where the nicest business models are, where there's already some proven model there where you can monetize on it, but there's a lot of room to grow into. It's an early industry, Bitcoin. That's why I'm saying AI and Bitcoin is probably now the biggest opportunity, because there are proven models in those areas already. And there's still a lot of room to grow, especially in Bitcoin. So I think that was that for first. There was another question in there. I forgot it.
Yeah. How did you build the momentum?
Oh yeah, the momentum. True. This is an interesting one, because you have to find. You basically have to do two things. You have to make people stop what they're doing and start watching your video, or whatever you're doing, like if it's a newsletter or anything else, but let's stick with the podcast for that moment. And it's a principle that basically can be built on everything that's related to content. So the first thing you have to do is make them stop what they're doing and start watching your thing. That's in YouTube, the thumbnail. That's on Twitter, just like the first thing that they are seeing when they're scrolling through. That's on TikTok, the first 2 seconds that they are watching the video. Whatever this is the hook, the thumbnail, the title, like whatever you want to call that. That's what I call is the interest maker. That's the where the first click comes from. This is the really hard part, because when you're just starting out, even though you might have watched 100 videos on that subject, you have no clue why people click, and you have no clue how to make them click. You can only know over time with getting to know your audience and testing out and making data-driven decision. That's why I made the decision to make a lot of content to get a lot of data back. I have now, I think, around 1,500 different videos out on my channel where I got the data back. How many times did someone click on it? How many times did someone not click on that video? And that data really helps you to get the first skill, make them click, make them aware, make them interested in your content piece. You get better in this. You know how to frame the face in the thumbnail, what words to write in the title. And then you also have to cycle through them, because if a title works one time, it might work a second time, but it might not work a fifth time, because people are getting saturated with those things. So you have to find your own voice and style in that and be recognizable in really short form. But then the second thing, and this is the, for me, more important thing, is you have to make such great content that people like to listen to that, watch that, read that, whatever the content is, for as long as humanly possible. That's basically how all the platforms work, especially YouTube. So if you can make them click on your thumbnail and then you make them watch for a long time, YouTube will make that video go as far as humanly possible. Because this is all YouTube wants. They want to put videos in the starting screen where people want to click on it because they're interested in it, and then they're also watching it because they're staying in the YouTube platform. That's literally the job that you have to do. And this is not as easy as it is when you explain it, because you have to know, okay, why do people no longer watch the video? Where do they drop off? And you get the data. You have all your videos, and from YouTube you get fed back the data. Hey, at 30 seconds, there's still 85% of people watching. But at minute 30, there are only 10% watching. What happened in between there? Where did people drop off? What did I say that people made click out from that video? And you can see those highlights, you can see those spikes. So a lot of it comes down to be an interesting person or be a funny person. But I'm not funny, so I focus on being interesting. So if you're not beautiful or funny, better focus on being interesting. And I'm like, okay, I'll focus on being interesting. And I learned over time what guest is capturing the audience longer than other guests. I've learned what they're saying, how they say it, what topics they are discussing, and how to do this over time. But those are the two things. If you can make people click and you can make people watch, you can you can go really, really far. Just that those two things are really hard. And I want to touch on something. We're coming from a follower based, and it's so funny because I never talked on a podcast about that, but we are coming from a follower based social media environment. And now we are actually at an interest based social media environment. What do I mean by that? Earlier, it was all about how many followers do you have, how many subscribers do you have, and those people got your content, and you have to earn more subscribers to get more distribution. Now, subscribers, followers, it doesn't matter anymore. You just create a content. If this content gets clicked on and watched, you can have a YouTube channel. And I actually did that. I created a new YouTube channel just a month ago, a clips channel of my own channel. And this channel right now has 200 subscribers, so not a lot, after a month. And I already have 2 videos over 1,000 views and 1 video almost at 10,000 views. This with a 200 subscriber channel. So this clearly shows in this small example that we are no longer at a follower or subscriber based social media environment. We are interest based, which is great for the new people that come in because they don't need to rely on a big followership. They can just make a great piece of content and it goes viral. It's bad for the people that are already big because this means if you have 1 million followers, you might just get 5,000 views. But maybe with 200 subscribers, you get 10,000 views, 2x the amount of someone that has 1 million followers. So this is an extremely interesting opportunity. And those opportunities will just get bigger and bigger over time as competition grows. Nobody can just relax. Of course, if a really famous guy posts something, even if it's a bad content piece, it will get more views just because he is famous and people want to know what's going on with him. So and context is very important to people. Let's just make that with an example. Let's say you are a random dude that nobody knows about. Let's say you are me. So I'm just on Twitter and I post, oh, I took a really big shit today. That's what I post. How far can this really go? Like if the algorithm is really good to me, maybe I get 5,000 impressions on Twitter. Maybe I get 10,000 impressions if people interact with it and find it funny. But if the same thing is posted by Elon Musk, it will get 1 million impressions because he's Elon Musk. It's the context of being Elon Musk that makes that tweet funnier because the richest guy on earth posted that he took a dump on the toilet. If I do that, like nobody really cares. So the context to you matters, and you can use the context even if you are not famous. For example, there are a lot of videos that are, hey, I'm a real dentist, and I react to a YouTuber dentist who makes a video of how to clean your teeth. And then a title like "Real Dentist Reacts to YouTuber saying that about your teeth." That could go really viral because people are like, oh, the authority is the real dentist. Let's see what he actually says to the guy that I'm listening to usually. So context is really important, and you don't have to be famous or rich to make that context. If you're famous and rich, it's easier. Like we like Michael Saylor, if he posts something about Bitcoin, it gets way further if you're just copying the same tweet and just posting it yourself. First of all, that's just copying it, so people don't like that also. But even if Michael Saylor would give you a tweet and you post it first on the day before and then he posted later, he will get more views because he has the context of being Michael Saylor. So the content piece is super important and very critical, and you can go very far with one, even if you're not known. But always think also about the context of it. Like, why should people listen to that? If I search online of like, oh, how to scale up my Instagram or how to scale up my YouTube channel, And then I see a YouTube channel with like 200 subscribers and like a 1 hour long video where the guy explains me how to scale up my YouTube channel. I'm like, why should I listen to this guy? He only has 200 subscribers. But if he has, I don't know, 1 million subscribers, and I see all the views are really high, obviously he knows what he's doing. So I might listen to this 1 hour thing. So it's about authority. It's about the context. But the good news is it's more and more about the single piece of content, if that makes sense. I think I was all over the place, but I hope you got something valuable from it.
No, totally. Okay. How important, okay, actually you just talked about building authority. So you started in a saturated Bitcoin podcast market, you could say. Now you could say there's room for 100 other Bitcoin podcasts, and you might agree with that, right? Because of how big this particular industry is growing. But how did you personally build the authority, maybe starting in, because it's a trap that we all fall into, is that we learn about a topic and now we want to share that topic with the world. But you're like, oh man, there's so many other experts out there that might be like a 9 out of 10 in this topic. And I'm maybe only like a 3 out of 10 in this topic in terms of knowledge base. Like we look at a guy like Michael Saylor, right? And just the unbelievable brilliance that he can speak about when it comes to Bitcoin. So how did you get past that mental trap and then also start building authority for yourself as a newcomer into this market?
There are a lot of, that's really interesting because I never talked about that publicly, actually. That would be really fun. First of all, yes, there's only like, you can have 1,000 Bitcoin podcasts because like digitally there's like no limit to that, but there is limit to, there's limits to other things. For example, I know Bitcoin Prague is a really big conference in Europe. It has around 10,000 people that are there, and I know that they have around 250 speakers each year. And I know because I'm in contact with the co-founder there, they have a waiting list of 400, 500 speakers. So there is a limit there. And I, for the first time ever this year, will be speaking on the main stage there, maybe even like 3 times on different panels. So there is an unlimited time, unlimited space in the digital world. But if you think about who is the top 100, who's the top 200 in a space, there are only 200 spots. And you can see that maybe more with conferences and speaker lists and stuff like that. So you have to build up that authority and that thing that you can actually be on those top 100, top 200 lists in the world of talking about Bitcoin. But how to get there? It's in Bitcoin very easy, I would say, because Bitcoiners are not guarding the doors. Bitcoiners are having open doors because they love new ideas, they love new faces, they love having new interactions, and they love to see if someone puts in the proof of work. So I came into this space and I just interviewed every day a single person. And this got such big because I interviewed so many people that people were talking about me and people were listening to the podcast. And all of a sudden I go to a conference and like half the people there know me, either because I spoke with them on a podcast or they listen to the podcast or they saw it somewhere else or they saw me on another podcast. So this was a huge proof of work. And I can tell you, when I started this podcast, I didn't know that much about Bitcoin as I thought I know. I did not know about UTXO management when I started the podcast. I learned this through the podcast. And people like that. People like to see you grow, like to talk. It's such a cliche to say cliche thing to say, but document and not like document your life. But it really is something people like. I get messages now from people, hey, I love what you're doing. And I saw your first couple of episodes and I thought like this guy might have a chance of being a bigger one. And now I see you at all those conferences and it's just like 1.5 years ago. So people see your journey and people like rooting for someone. So if you're just going out there and documenting your life and your journey, this is also something valuable. If you have So like if you have no authority and you're not rich and you are not famous, it's really hard to build something, because why should people listen to you? Because you have to be interesting. But if you're not interesting, you're not beautiful, you're not funny, and you're not rich or famous, then your best chance is document as much as you can from your life and try to find interesting stories. And I always, it's easier if you have interesting things to say. So maybe, and this is a hard truth that some people might have to swallow, maybe it's not yet the time for you to go out there and be loud. Or maybe you can be loud out there and you can go out there, but you also should study. You also should learn, read books, try things. So, because you can only tell things if you got them first in your brain. If you never got things in your brain, the best speakers in the world, like a Michael Saylor, they know so much about so many different random topics. I had him on my podcast and I talked with him about Bitcoin, and the first comparison he made was Bitcoin to how the watch was made and how it aligns to the stars and how this worked. And I was blown away because I never heard that comparison. And I never knew about how the watch was made and how those things work together. But he's an MIT engineer. He's a rocket scientist. He learned about those things. That's why he's such a great speaker. Not just because he knows how to speak, but he has a lot of things in his brain. He has a lot of stories, a lot of analogies, a lot of information in his brain. And he's really good in comprehending those and making them digestible for other people. So being a good speaker is more about listening than speaking, I would say, because you really have to get information in your brain before you can speak them. There's a skill to speaking. There's a skill to how to say things, but I'm not, I'm in my starting journey of that. I'm also just like 26 years old. I'm also in the starting phases of learning. I'm learning every day about Bitcoin, about history. I'm now going really deep. I was super lazy in all of my life when it came to learning about history, learning about engineering, learning about all those things. But because of Bitcoin, now I learn about the steam engine, about the printing press, about electrical engineering, about all those topics, because I'm interested in that. And all of a sudden, I can make analogies through the printing press and can tell people how Bitcoin might be adopted, because I have an analogy how printing press and paradigm shifting innovation in the past completely changed society. And I can say, okay, this is how the printing press changed society. This might be how Bitcoin will change society. So it's a lot about listening and reading and going in you and forming thoughts and writing them down, and being a key person of influence, how Daniel Priestley always says, is more about listening and reading and then also writing those thoughts down, creating a pitch, like what is your story, what is your message that you're bringing. Again, if you are not funny, not beautiful, any of those things. And being interesting is the most long-term plan you can have. So that's the best thing you can do to be successful long-term on any platform, basically, especially podcasting, because like most people just listen, like nobody cares about how you look.
Yeah, exactly. Face for radio, right? I thought your tweet about taking a big crap was pretty funny, Robin. So I think you got to give yourself some more credit there, buddy.
I'm trying to be funny, but I'm not always. So I'm self-aware of that.
You got to play to your strengths, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So how did you know that you were interesting enough, or that it was time that you had something to share? Because as you said, like sometimes you just got to chill, you got to learn more. And it's like you adding your voice to the conversation might not be the right time. And I think we all get frustrated when somebody who might not know much about a subject, when you know a lot about a subject, talks about that subject, because you're like, well, they're just talking to talk, right? When it's better to listen and actually learn about a topic before you ever talk about it. So how did you know it was your time?
I knew that it is not my time. That's why I started an interview podcast. That is a really interesting, maybe that's a funny story, actually. I saw this, I made small TikTok videos before, and then I saw this video online that says like, oh, like you have to make long form content. It really inspired me on that evening. And then I was like, okay, I will sit down now and I will make a long form video about Bitcoin. And I sat down, started recording, and I was like, I will go in one go, 1 hour now, set a timer, 1 hour. I recorded it. I was like, oh, like nice. I just talked about Bitcoin 1 hour just with myself. And then I listened to the video and I was like, that's freaking boring. It's like, this was so, it was not interesting. It was boring. I did not like it. And then I had the idea, hey, I really like talking with people. I really like asking them questions. So why not I go ahead and do exactly that? So I knew, I tested it with myself. Like I did not even like it, that I'm not interesting enough. So I went ahead and asked people, like, I talk, of course, within my podcast, but it's mostly like 80% like you are doing basically now, asking about the guest and what he's saying and what is his experience and what is his skills and all those things. So it's only after, actually, it kind of starts like this year. I had last year already like 10, 15 guest appearances, and I never ask anyone to be on any podcast. So if you see me on any podcast, this is because the hosts ask me to do, because I want to have that grown organically completely. So I've never asked to be on any podcast, and I got invited to some podcasts already last year. I think it was like 10, maybe 15, something like that. This year we are just in May, so it's like 5 months now out of 12. I already was at 30 podcasts this year alone, because now my story is more interesting. I have more knowledge. So this is how I know now that I get a little bit more interesting. I get a little bit more. People can invite me now more. I also now I think like October last year was my first ever conference. Then November was the next one. December was the next one. I'm now being in Bitcoin Las Vegas on stage, invited as a speaker. They find me so valuable that they invite me and even pay for my hotel, which is like, wow, like how did I get here? Last year, I would have loved to be there and would have paid for everything myself. And I was like, I would be just, I would be so grateful to even have the chance to be there. Now I get to be there because I proved myself a little bit. Like I'm really early in my journey, and I think humility and self-awareness is a lot of those very important, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm so interesting. I'm starting a YouTube channel and I'm talking about Bitcoin. They're making 20 videos. They all are extremely boring, but they think it's interesting, and then they blame the platform. And then they're, oh, like YouTube is shadow banning me. You have 10 subscribers. YouTube does not give any shit about you. So it's about being aware where in the story you are. And if you are currently not, if you saw like I did, and I still think I have a lot of things to do better in speaking and forming my thoughts and talking about those things. If you are also in the same position, why not just listen? Like ask people, and you don't even have to do a podcast for that. You can also do it in written form. I already got asked, I think 2-3 times to just write my answers back. So they ask me, hey, there are like 10 questions. What do you say about Bitcoin? And they are publishing on a blog. Really interesting format. So you don't have to do it video. Video is obviously the best format you can do, because it's like if you have a video, you also have audio. If you have video and audio, you also have written, because you can transcribe it and make it in a blog, make it in a newsletter. You can all those things. So video is obviously the best one. But maybe it's just time to be to find the humility and learn more, and you can track, you can document that learning process. It doesn't mean just because you're learning doesn't mean you cannot talk. You can share what you have learned, and you're like, okay, I don't know anything about this. Is actually something interesting. I think a channel like that would do really good. Someone that has no clue about Bitcoin at all and just shares every day what he have learned about Bitcoin, and just shares his process. Oh, like today I learned that there's something like UTXO management. Oh, today I learned about the history of money. So having the humility and saying like, oh, I don't know anything about that, but I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to document my process. Like, why not do that? So that's basically what I did. And I'm doing it now 1 year, and I'm getting invited to podcasts, and I have a lot of this, how's it called, imposter syndrome, because of like why am I invited to podcasts? But yeah, you have to find the humility to like see where in the story you are, and where you can fit in the whole community. Are you a learner? Like, are you, maybe you can already speak. And there are a lot of people that are way more interesting than they think. I had guests on my show that was super interesting, and they asked me later, oh, I think it was not that good. Like, can we do it again? Yeah, like, hey, that was super interesting. Don't sell yourself short. So self-awareness is really hard. And it's because some people are just, and I say that also, some people are too interesting to be a podcast host. There are some people that are so interesting and so good. They should make their own videos about their opinions. They don't have to be the host, because they're too interesting for the audience. They should be the speaker, and that's So I bring it down to humility and self-awareness.
Yeah, you're totally right. A guy like Jeff Booth or Michael Saylor, like, they shouldn't start their own podcast, right? And they don't need to, because whatever podcast they go on, even if it's somebody's first podcast episode, if you have on Saylor or a guy like Booth who'll just blow your mind with insights, like, that video is going to blow up regardless, just because of who they are and because of the level of conversation that they bring, right? So you're totally right. They don't need to do their own thing.
And yeah, you have to be aware of where's your place in the community, and maybe this shifts. Maybe you're now starting as a host, and you're becoming more and more of a speaker, and maybe you stop doing the hosting one day. So and maybe you are just a Joe Rogan and you're just like hosting all your life. I think that's what I will do. I couldn't think of a single reason why to stop my podcast, because I always want to learn from people. Maybe it's not about Bitcoin anymore. Maybe it's other topics, because like there's always something to learn. But yeah, it would be weird if Michael Saylor hosts a podcast.
It would be weird. Yeah. So that's one thing I wanted to ask you. How important do you think it is to whatever content you're going to create? It doesn't have to be a podcast. Let's say a blog, a YouTube channel, a TikTok. How important is it to niche down, at least at the beginning, and just pick one topic? Or do you think it's not important at all? Like, if you're interested in so many different topics, maybe like a guy like Joe Rogan, can you start like that? Or do you have to niche down right from the beginning?
Before that question, you have to ask yourself a very important, different question. What do you want to achieve? So if you just want to have a channel where you record and document your thoughts, and you don't care about the monetization aspect, or if you get sponsored or anything like that, you just want to document and report and have a channel that your grandchildren can look at, like, that's a legit goal. You don't have to care about niches. you just go in and talk whatever you want to talk. And those channels sometimes blow up. There's like a guy that just is like 60, 70 years old, and he just sits on a chair and he talks for an hour, and he has millions of followers, and he's like an old, like those people really exist because they're super interesting. They didn't knew that they were interesting, but they are. So the first thing you have to ask yourself, what do you want to achieve? If you want to be a keynote Bitcoin speaker, you have to focus on Bitcoin. Focus solely on Bitcoin. And once you're the keynote Bitcoin speaker, maybe throw in your second interest and third interest. And for example, if you do a 1 hour podcast, you can talk about 5 minutes about Star Wars, about swimming, about whatever you really like to talk about, because people like to hear your story. I, for example, was a swimmer. I still am a swimmer, and it's super funny because I go to conferences. Sometimes people come up to me that hear the podcast, and people that listen a lot, and I'm fascinated how much they know about my life, because if you record every day 1 hour, you would be fascinated how much you share outside of Bitcoin. And you're like, oh, like this and that. It's about what goal you have. And if you have the goal of being a Bitcoin keynote speaker, then definitely you have to talk a lot about Bitcoin. If you have a company that sells something and you want to promote that thing that you're selling with a podcast, you should find an interesting topic that people that want to listen to, that and they don't have, like, even people that don't want to buy a product still find interesting, but in a way to position yourself as an authority in the thing that you are selling. For example, if you have a hardware wallet and you start a podcast, it should be a Bitcoin podcast. And then you can talk about self-custody a lot and tips and tricks and all those things. Those are interesting for people, even if they don't buy your hardware wallet, but it gives you the authority to be in the space for hardware wallet, because you talk about self-custody, you talk about Bitcoin, you talk about all those things. So it really comes down to what is your goal with whatever channel or like blog, whatever you're doing, and niching down is definitely helping you grow. But sometimes it's not only about going far, it's also going about going deep, going wide. So that's something very important. You can go wide with maybe one TikTok, but going deep is like having a 1 hour conversation on a podcast with someone and having different topics in there, talking about Star Wars, swimming, Bitcoin, and diet and gym and like whatever you like. You go really deep in a conversation and then in a relationship to your viewers. Going wide is like having one 30-second TikTok that has like 2 million people. That is wider than, let's say, having a 5,000 view podcast. But with those 5,000 people that viewed your podcast, you have a way deeper conversation, a way deeper relationship. So it all boils down again to what is your goal with it, and from there you should derive what you actually should do.
So what was your goal at the beginning, and has that goal changed as you've progressed?
That's right. The first goal, I think I already mentioned it a little bit before. First goal was just to talk to the Bitcoiners, talk to other people about Bitcoin. It was not the goal to make money with it, even though it was a little bit in the back of my mind. Maybe I can make some extra cash with it, like maybe like $500 next to it. But it never really was the goal of like this will be my main business. Then it changed to, oh, this could be a job. Like this could be something bigger, not bigger. This could be a job that I could do from wherever I want to be. And it's about Bitcoin. Like those two things are really big. And now I talk and do a lot of those processes behind the scenes of the podcast, and now I have freelancers and I'm training them. Now I'm feeling maybe the goal for me is even building a freedom-focused media company, which helps bring Bitcoin and other freedom related topics to the world. This is kind of my goal right now. I want to I want to build a machine that builds a podcast. So I know now how to build a podcast, but maybe having more podcasts, having more different media outlets is accelerating the voice. And at some point, if I'm successful, probably next year, I will hire a second host to host a whole different podcast, maybe not even about Bitcoin, because I know how to do a podcast and do this. So my goal right now is how to build a media company that accelerates freedom rights, individual rights, and sovereignty rights in the world as a bigger topic, but Bitcoin as the core focus on that. So that's what my goal currently is. So my goal is evolving, as you can see. The more information I get, the better the decision I can make. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it strikes me like, I wonder if the best route is to lean into your interests and not lean into trying to make money. And it's kind of like the follow your passion thing, but I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, because there is a reality of like, you need to earn income in this world. Like many people have to support themselves. So I don't know if it's that easy as saying that, but it does seem like just lean into what interests you, and money may and likely could follow that because you're so passionate about it. But I'm not entirely sure. I'm still figuring it out.
It is a really interesting thing, because if you're super passionate about that and you really want to make that thing your work, whatever it is, let's say you are really into collecting, I don't know, teddy bears, whatever your thing is, you can make money with that, but maybe the way you make money with that isn't as fun as collecting the teddy bears. So it's super fun for me to have a podcast and talk with the people and develop content. But it's a lot of work to figure out how to do it every day, how to book the guests, how to do the administration work, how to get a podcast out, how to distribute it, how to edit it, all those things. So like if you see an hour-long podcast of mine, there's another 5 hours of work that you don't see. So the 4 hours is how you make that 1 hour profitable. If you just record a podcast and you just put it out there, you don't care about the thumbnail, you don't care about the title, you don't put any effort around the thing, you have to be really good, really interesting to be discovered and to be like out there. So I've seen people starting a podcast and they're like, oh, like they don't even put I mean, there are examples of that. How is that gym guy called? I forgot his name, but he don't put thumbnails and he has always the same kind of title and he has like millions of followers and he has like a vlog kind of a style where he goes like hours on end and people really love it. But those are the exceptions. If you want to make having teddy bear collections and talking about the teddy bear collections your thing, you have to figure out all the other pieces. And this is how you make that one thing that seems weird to make money with, all of a sudden makes sense that you make money with. And when I just say to someone, oh yeah, I make money while talking about Bitcoin, people will be like, how do you make money? Like this does not make sense. But if I explain to them what I'm doing in a day, then you're like, okay, that's where the money comes from. That's how you do the sales. Like that's how the business operates. Then all of a sudden they get it. So if you have a big interest, you can make that a profitable thing, but it might take some work that you might not like.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? Like at the end of the day, it is work. It's not like you can just talk about your passion, record some videos, all of a sudden, okay, I'm in the golden zone. I'm earning money, getting paid to talk about what I want to talk about or document what I want to document. But it's like there is real work involved, which is why I hesitate to say, I don't think follow your passion is the right advice, but I think it's some mixture of the two.
Yeah, you have to follow your passion, but if you don't provide value, you don't get value. Like there's no free lunch. There's nothing like nobody will give you anything for free, because everyone has to work for money. So people only give it to you if they think you deserve the money. They just give money away for free. So if you're doing something and you're not providing value, don't be surprised if there's nothing coming back. And I heard this already from Bitcoin podcast. Oh, it's impossible to make money with it. I'm like, no, I started one. I make money. I employ freelancers. It's possible. You might just not want to put in the work that makes it work. So that is really important, because especially in Bitcoin, there's this weird notion of low time preference. And it's really important to have a low time preference, but people confuse it with being lazy. People are like, oh, I have a low time preference, I will not do anything today. Like, of course you don't get anything. Like if you have you have to have a lot of Bitcoin to be able to do nothing. And there are people like that, of course. But if you want to get value from society, you have to put in the proof of work. That's what proof of work, and that's what the Bitcoin mentality really is. That's why I'm putting every day. I'm working Monday through Sunday, and that's, I think, it's a might not get talked enough about, but if you're working in a company, and I see it with friends of mine, they work in a company, they have 38 hours in a week, and they are doing it from like 9 a.m. to like 5 p.m. and they're having regular sleep, and they're having like days off, they have Easter off and Christmas off and all those things. I work since I started the podcast every single day. There's not a single day where I did not work at least 1-2 hours. There are now sometimes where I take a day off, but a day off is still 2-3 hours of work for me. That's a day off for me. If I do 2 hours of work, that's kind of like a holiday for me. So this is a hard truth that some people might not want to hear, like, oh, I want to be independent on my own and set my own time. Yeah, like you can set your own time, but this time will be 24/7 and 7 days a week, and it will be Christmas and it will be Easter, and there might be late calls, there might be something that you have to do. And yes, there's always the stress of, can you make the bills next week? Can you make the bills next month? And there's the employee that wants more money. There's the supplier that wants more money, and there's the client that wants to spend less money with you. So surprise, you have to deal with all that. So it's something that it's not as easy as people think. The rewards are huge, and it's really great. And I couldn't go back to normal fiat. I could not go back to a normal 9-to-5 job. I think in a normal 9-to-5 job now, I would just burn out after like 2 months, because I couldn't do it. It's not exciting anymore. But not everyone is wired this way. I sometimes stand up at 4 a.m. because I have an idea to do something on the podcast or something on the business, and I cannot sleep anymore because I have to do this now. And then I work till like 3 p.m. and then I sleep 2 hours, and then I stand up again and work till like 8 p.m. Like that's having a routine and have a normal job. If family and if your focus is being there in the evening for your family and being having a normal life and being completely free on Eastern, I see it like when my girlfriend also has her own small business, but she's mainly focusing on her work currently. So if she takes days off, she's completely off work, and she is just enjoying her life. If there's a day off, I'm checking my emails, like seeing the YouTube statistics. It's like, is there anything going viral? Is there anything going really bad? Like, do I have to do something right now? And even I was 2 weeks ago in Albania just to do a small holiday. I was every day in the morning and in the evening quickly. I checked for like half an hour to an hour. My emails, checked through the social medias. Can I do anything? Is there any file that I have to take out? And I'm just a small little podcast. I'm one of the least profitable and smallest businesses that you can think of. Imagine if you want to do anything bigger than that.
Yeah.
So I would warn people, if they really want it, and if they really want it, they should go ahead and do it, and be aware that making your interesting things and your hobbies a job and a business might take a lot of more work and hustle and mental capacity that they think of. And it's not easy, man. Like it's something you have to struggle with. But the flip side of it, I go now every month to a different conference and speak there and be there, because I can do that and I love doing that. And I'm in a different country every single month. And my girlfriend would love to come, but she only has a certain amount of holidays. So like there's pros and cons. Like you have to make, like you pick your poison.
Yeah. It reminds me of that quote, there are no solutions, only trade-offs.
Exactly. Yeah. Like there's everything. You can always, exactly.
And you got to pick those trade-offs. Like, what are you willing to put up with? What are you willing to not put up with? And I guess you got to find your balance of the two.
100%.
Yeah. So you've had 500 plus conversations at this point, long form with Bitcoiners, but I'm sure Star Wars has come up in a couple conversations, it sounds like. What have you learned from speaking to 500 different people at this point for hours on end?
There's really three main things. The first thing is Bitcoin isn't just an investment or money or anything like that. I think Bitcoin truly is a so-called paradigm shift, a revolution, whatever you want to call it, similar to other inventions like the internet, electricity, the steam engine, anything like that. Or the telegraph. I like the electronic telegraph also as an example. And this is kind of the new base layer that we are working towards for money. And why it is so important to have, why is that so impactful for all of us when we change the base layer of money? It's very simple. Money is just a tool, as we say, but it is a tool that we interact with every single day. And having that changed out in a completely different way of, it doesn't get less over time, it gets more over time, changes, as we already hinted at, the time preference. But it also changes the proof of work aspect. It will change society back into a trade society where people are really prospering if they have a strong trade or skill that they can provide to society. And now we have a lot of jobs that go around and just suck energy from other people. It's like those management things, those rent-seeking things that are just there because there's a big fiat system. I mean, the whole banking industry will be a lot small in itself. Not saying that we don't need managers anymore. Managers in a company is really important, but there's a lot of the industry, a lot of the world that is just rent-seeking because there are inefficiencies in our money. If money is completely efficient and we can use it as a savings technology, all of a sudden people that have valuable skills and trade will be a lot more highly valued than the so-called, I can call them rent seekers. So that's the first thing, just really quickly to sum that up. The second thing that I realized is we are in an information war. We are currently in the podcast scene, and there's a lot of Bitcoin podcasts out there. I don't mean the information war between those. I mean the information war between Bitcoin podcasters and gold advocates and stock ETF advocates and fiat people. So there's a lot of narratives that go against each other and pulling apart like where the world is going. Yeah. And it's very important that we as Bitcoiners, because we are really focused on Bitcoin, that we try to be those digital but also offline soldiers in those information war. And I love that people go ahead and offline go say, hey, I like Bitcoin because of that. Or someone is saying something weird about Bitcoin and he's like, no, that's actually not true because of that and that and that. So we need those offline soldiers, but also we need digital soldiers that have podcasts, TikTok accounts, whatever. And we need a lot more of them. There's a lot of fake news out there for Bitcoin. There's a lot of misunderstandings of Bitcoin out there. And the awareness for me that we are in an information war, and there are a lot of other informations out there and a lot of other narratives out there that are also really dominant, was really revealing to me. Then there's the third thing. We are super early to this paradigm shift. We're super early to this Bitcoin thing. I honestly thought before I started the podcast that we are like 5, maybe 10% into the adoption. But if you look at the real numbers, if you look at how many people have Bitcoin, that is maybe one metric. Maybe then we are at 3-4% of adoption. But then you look, how many of those people have a substantial amount, let's say 40% plus in Bitcoin? You drop that number by like from 5% to like 1% or maybe like 0.5%. Then you ask, how many of those know about self-custody and do it? How many of those run a full node? How many of those know what Bitcoin mining is? And you go down that list and you all of a sudden see we are super early. we are maybe at 0.1% adoption and nowhere near 5% adoption. So those 3 things I would say are my main learnings: that Bitcoin is a paradigm shift, that we are in an information war, and that we are super, super, super early in that paradigm shift.
Yeah. Sometimes I just like want to slap myself and I'm like, how did I figure this out? And it took me a while to have the confidence to be like, I think I did figure some of this out. Like, but for a while I was questioning myself, like, there's no way I figured this out. And like, there's just no way. Like, I'm not the guy that figures things out early. I'm late to the party. I don't know. Like, how the heck did I understand this thing before so many other intelligent and experienced people? And I don't know. I feel confident now saying that, but it took me a while to get there, to be like, I don't even, necessarily feel confident saying I figured it out. Maybe I haven't figured it out.
I think there's levels to it. I think nobody to 100% can understand Bitcoin because there's already so many sections and subsections of Bitcoin. I think the people that understand it the most are probably like at 70-80% of understanding of all those things that going on. So maybe there's like a threshold of like, if you understand 40% of it, you can say you understood it, something like that.
It's so true, man, because in 2022, I thought I had kind of figured it out. And I knew, of course, there's more to learn. But I'm like, okay, I figured it out. Self-custody, you hold it, got it. And then it was 2024 that it's like, I almost got like quadruple orange pilled again, where I went through a phase of being like, oh my God, I thought I had it figured out. I didn't understand it at all. And I went deeper down. And it's like, I know there's definitely more to go, but it's like the deeper I understand it, the more exclusive territory I almost feel that I'm in, because there's less and less people that you can talk to about it or relate to, or that maybe you're like, no, like you don't get it fully. Like I see it now. Like you see people, back down the path where you were and you're like, no, keep going. Like there's more, come with me,
Yeah, you take other people down the rabbit hole, and you're like, oh, but I'm also not at the end, and they're like, oh, you're just there yet. So you discover more and more, and I feel about that in Bitcoin more and more, because talking with 500 different people, you think you get it now, but then there's another thing coming up, and you're like, oh, that's new. Like, why did I never heard about that thing?
Yeah. Know what I've been doing lately is just ChatGPT, like, okay, you understand, I'm talking to chat. I'm like, you understand exactly what I know about this topic, about the world. I was so blind to something like Bitcoin or maybe other different aspects of life up until I learned this. What am I blind to now? What do I not understand now? What's in the early stages that's coming that, 0.1% of the population understands that you can tell me right now? So that I'm not going to be late to this party. So I'm going to be even earlier to this party. Like, tell me what I'm missing. Give me my blind spots. Let me know what is existing in the world right now that I need to know about. Where is society heading? How do I set myself up? And it's actually been super revealing, because I found the deeper, at least my ChatGPT AI profile understands me, the more it's able to give me. And it's showing me all these blind spots and further learnings and deeper learnings, which it's just been an insane productivity and learning tool for me, man.
I think AI is one of those blind spots for a lot of people. A lot of people know about ChatGPT, maybe heard about it, maybe heard about AI, but I don't see a lot of people really use it. And I'm fascinated by that, because I use it every single day, and it improved my life in, let's say, two very different sections. The first is knowledge. I use it every single day to look something up and to ask it something. I give it a lot of information and say, like, for example, I currently searched that's actually number. Let's stick with that other example with knowledge. Like, I put all the transcript of all my podcasts in ChatGPT and ask it, hey, what could I write a book on? I put guest appearances of mine in ChatGPT and like, hey, what are the main talking points that I talk about? What should I talk more about? What do you think am I missing when I'm talking about those things, and just improving myself and the knowledge base that I have. And the second thing is actually what I wanted to talk earlier about, is the practical aspect of making your life faster and more efficient. For example, I'm currently no longer in search of an apartment. I'm moving. So I searched a lot of apartments, and all the communication with all the people was only done with ChatGPT. I never wrote a single email, a single response. There was an email coming in. It went into my ChatGPT. ChatGPT gave me the answer, gave it out there. Never wrote a single thing. I found a new apartment now in less than a week, and I never wrote any emails, and it was really, really good. So this is just one small example, and I do it with my podcast, like in the process every single day. We use different AIs in our team, but ChatGPT is the one I personally use the most, and is also the best one, I think, currently as an all-rounder. Maybe you have a special tool that is perfect for that one task. What I'm really looking forward towards in AI is AI agents. When is an AI agent replacing one of my freelancers? That's what I'm looking forward to. And saying, hey, I'm paying a monthly subscription to that AI agent, $1,000, and it will save me $10,000 because it's so good, so productive, and so consistent. And it works every single day, 24/7, and it's not doing anything else than that. Like, I'm looking forward to those days where we have AI agents.
Yeah, it's going to work 24/7 without needing to manage other humans, without needing to sleep, without any ego, which is a huge thing, and with all of the world's knowledge, and with 100x the efficiency that any possible human could have. So Like the productivity boom of AI is insane to me, but it's such a tool for self-reflection, just reflecting on your blind spots, reflecting on your current knowledge base. What am I missing? What more can you tell me? You know, it's been an incredible tool for me to learn about Bitcoin, for example, because I can just go back and forth and ask it questions live in real time. And it's like I'm talking to an expert, like a Robin Syre, or like a Michael Saylor, or like a Jeff Booth, or like a Tom Karadza, and I can go and think, well, tell me more about the money system. How does it work? You know, like if that's the case, then what happens if this, right? And like fully interactive conversations to understand these things on my own time, wherever I am and whatever I want to learn. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think your IQ points will go up if you talk more to AI.
100%. Yeah.
And even I currently think about doing that. I'm just worried about the data, but I'm currently thinking of one thing, that I summarize my day to AI and ask it what could have done, what would be the next steps, like how can I structure it in a better way. Just having basically a diary and feeding that diary to an AI and giving actionable steps to improve on that AI.
Yeah.
Through on that day through AI and those things. They even like pins that you can walk all over and always have with you. The only concern I always have is like data and like privacy.
Same.
But we are already walking with microphones. Like I always have a microphone around me, and I never like there's either my laptop or like literally my microphone or my phone or anything. Like there's always some microphone seemingly around. So why not just get the best out of it? Why not be half robot? Like I think like fully embracing that might be a real advantage. It's the same thing with the chip. I really am worried that we soon will all have chips in our brain and what this means for our world, because they are now the first applications on humans. And imagine how much better a person is that has a chip in his brain attached to the internet, attached to ChatGPT, attached to everything he's doing. He will be smarter than any other human that does not have a chip on his place. So the game theory of adopting chips in your brain will be scary.
Yeah. I'm getting real Terminator vibes from you now, Robin. You're going to live up to that accent, buddy.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. But yeah, it will be scary. Maybe I have to come back and shoot the AIs.
Oh, man.
I'll be back.
Yeah, yes, we got the line. Yes. Amazing. Dude, I could talk to you all day. So much in common with you, man. Really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. And I'm just a huge fan of your podcast. I really mean that. I think you're a great listener, to your point. When you say becoming a great speaker is about being a great listener, I think you really embody that, because you listen to your guests, you give them time and space to talk. And I've learned a lot from some of the interesting guests you've had on your show. So you are having an impact on people across the world, man. So it's pretty cool what you're doing.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me.
Yeah, no problem. So where can people find your show if they want to check you out?
Today is a good day because I have my shirt on. It's literally just Robin and Syre, and you can find me anywhere you want. So I have a podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Fountain, and all those things. And also, I think my biggest channel is still YouTube. So just put in Robin Syre in YouTube search, and you will find it. Twitter, I'm also shit posting on Twitter. So this is where you find the raw me, where I just put out weird things that I just think about. So I force myself to do at least 3 tweets a day, but sometimes also in the middle of the day, I just have a thought and just like tweet it out. And those are the tweets that sometimes go really viral. So
like you taking a big crap.
Yeah, I might have to post that.
Yeah, I'll retweet it, man. You're gonna get one retweet, and you know it's from me.
It's like 0 likes and 1 retweet, and it's like you. But yeah, so Twitter is also a good place. Like wherever you consume content, YouTube, Twitter, and some of the podcast platforms is probably best. And if you want to get in contact with me, like if you have a question for me, Twitter DMs is always open, and I check every single DM. But I choose to not reply to some. So don't be offended if I don't reply.
Yeah. Thank you so much again. And I'll close with, I saw an Alex Hormozy clip the other day, and the guy asked him, is like, if you could leave the audience with one thing and never say another thing publicly or create content again, what would you say? And he said, figure out what you want, ignore the opinions of all other people, and do so much volume that it would be unreasonable that you don't succeed. And I think you really embody that. So it's been inspiring to talk to you, man. And I hope you just keep going.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I hear the Alex Hormozy in there. I listen to him also a lot, and it's like his words, and I really hear his voice when you talk these lines. So it's a great. Maybe I should ask the question once on my podcast. That's a really great question. What would you say? But that's a really great question. I like that a lot. Wow. Yeah. Thank you.
No problem, buddy. Okay, great meeting you. And I think you're going to meet up with Tom in Vegas. So I'll say my hello through Tom, and that's it. We'll end here.
Thank you so much. It was a great pleasure.